500 miles have passed by since the Tour DuPont started in Wilmington, Delaware. In the prologue time trial in downtown Wilmington, the stars came out and were putting in good rides, but they weren't to prove good enough to take the first leader's yellow jersey. Lance Armstrong finishing with a strong time. Raul Alcala, the Mexican pre-race favorite, he finished 2 with the second best time. They were both beaten by Jelle Nijdam of Holland and the Word Perfect team. She came home in 5:57.07. The first yellow jersey of the day was on the shoulders of Jelle Nijdam, and the next day, stage 1, a short ride of 57 miles from Dover back to Wilmington, was won by Wieben Wenstra. The first win for the Dutchman in the United States. He rides for the American Subaru Montgomery team. Just a few hours rest and the riders were back in the saddle again last Friday for a 15 miles team time trial. The 17 teams all coming out in team formation. Fastest time wins the day. Word Perfect strengthened their lead overall. Then we moved on to Port Deposit to Hagerstown. And then came Sean Yates, the British champion, scoring a fine win with the whole field behind him. The sprinting continued as we rode on to Hershey, another ride of 110 miles. Wieben Wenstra was back again, win number 2 for him. He was a clear sprint leader in this race. And then came the big climb to the Massanutten Resort, 100 hot and humid miles. Lance Armstrong took one look over his shoulder and left Raul Alcala for dead as he sprinted clear to win the prize at the top. This was the day the yellow jersey changes hands, not to Lance Armstrong, the stage winner, but in fact to the rider who came home in 4th place, Raul Alcala of Mexico. Alcala, the favourite, was now in yellow in the Tour DuPont, the man who won this race back in 1990. Then we were on the road again from Massanutten to Richmond, Virginia. The whole field fought it out, and another British rider, Malcolm Elliott, for the Chevrolet LA Sheriff team, he took his stage win number 10 in America. The Tour goes on. The Total Sports Network presents the 1993 Tour DuPont, America's premier cycling event. The Tour DuPont stays in the state of Virginia at the halfway stage today. The race goes from Richmond along the road on stage 7 to Lynchburg. Hello again, everybody. I'm Phil Liggett, as always, my co-commentator Brian Drebber. Well, ever since this race began in Wilmington, Delaware last Thursday, it's been a one-on-one battle between two teams, the Word Perfect team from Holland and the Motorola team from the United States. At the moment, the yellow jersey rests on the shoulders of their Mexican rider from Word Perfect, Raul Alcala. He leads by just 22 seconds over Lance Armstrong from Motorola. Now, Brian, the big question, what will happen today?
Well, I don't really think, Phil, that anything very significant is going to happen today with regard to the overall. It's kind of a bad news, good news day. The bad news is it's the longest stage of the Tour DuPont at 126 miles. The good news is it's fairly flat, and I think once again that's going to allow the teams, Word Perfect, Motorola, and the others to pretty much maintain the status quo. I think perhaps a breakaway can get away. Riders who are down 10 minutes or 15 minutes on general classification might form a breakaway, go for the stage win, and well, we could see some action today, but not among the favorites. That's my opinion, but let's go for another one and run over to Paul Sherwin.
Well, so far in this year's Tour DuPont, we've talked a lot about Lance Armstrong, and we've talked a lot about Raul Alcala. Maybe we've forgotten Bart Bonen a little bit, and he's riding in 3rd place overall at the moment. But will you try and attack, or are you a marked man?
Today is more of a flat stage, more of our sprinter, Wieben Wenstra. I think, I'm going to try and conserve my energy, wait for the mountains, and let that do my talking.
Well, that might be an advantage for the Word Perfect team. But riders like Mike Engelman and other climbers, they may try and slip away and get a few seconds on the road. That would put the Word Perfect team under pressure. However, if those guys don't attack, Word Perfect will let little breakaways go clear. Riders from Spain, from the Kelme and the Amaya squad, they'll get a little bit of freedom, which will then bring the other teams into chase. Teams like Coors Light, who want to win the stages, teams like Chevrolet LA Sheriff, they're the teams then that will try and keep the pack together so that their sprinters can win. It might give Word Perfect a day off.
At the start, everyone kind of milling around, and again, not too anxious to get this thing going, knowing the job ahead of them. Perhaps the Spanish riders will take wing today. That has been their history in this race. Lance Armstrong with man's best friend. He has been a best friend for a lot of riders. Otley Valsval still looking for the win, but it's going to be another day for the sprinters, maybe even Coors.
I think the sprinters, you know, I mean, we're all very supportive of each other. We even talk about the finish. They all ask me, oh, what's it like? What's coming up? I've been very open and honest and everything, but you know, when you get beat by them a couple times, you kind of want to clam up and say, you know, all right, pal, I'm going to kick your booty today. So yeah, I'd say, you know, I get a little bit tighter and a little bit tenser and a little more serious about the finishes, and you know, I've been close, but I definitely would like to beat these guys.
And this is the day before the mountains return to this race. Raul Alcala looking a lot more relaxed this morning. The pressure on him surely will come tomorrow. The Australians, and one of their men, one of their best men overall, Damien MacDonald, is 21 today. And this is the route they face. It's a race right through Virginia. Coming out from Richmond, we head west towards Lynchburg. It's not a difficult route by the standards these riders are normally used to, so it could be a day for the sprinters, as Brian Trevor has already indicated. It's a long road, though. It's hot, it's very humid, and there's an opportunity now for some riders who've already lost big time in this race to break away and try at least snatch the stage win. When we get to Lynchburg, well, we're in beautiful Virginia, aren't we? And the sun will still be shining.
An 8-mile circuit at the very end of the race, but along the way, it's well, it looks like it might be rolling terrain, but in fact, those that have been along the course say that it's just about dead flat, only rolling enough to be interesting. At the start, more young fans and more fans all the time coming out for this event. The gun is up. 126.5 miles ahead of them.
So the longest stage so far is underway, leaving the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia, and heading out to Lynchburg, and the field doing one lap of the shopping mall and putting on a show for the good folk here before they start to go out on the road. This is the situation so far. Armstrong is 22 seconds off Raul Alcala's yellow jersey, and Bart Bowen, the US champion, is third. The other competitions, Wilburn Veenstra holds the Lycra Sprint leader's jersey. Mercier, the suplex king of the mountains, and Fortner is the power bar most aggressive rider. This race brought to you by Word Perfect. This program is brought to you by Word Perfect, by Medalist Sports, and by Bud Dry, the less filling beer with a lot more taste. Why ask why? So the riders are underway in the lush green countryside of Virginia. We'll take a break. And we're back on the road in the Tour DuPont. Today, stage 7, Raul Alcala, the race leader, having taken the leader's yellow jersey on the climb up to the Massanutten Resort a couple of days ago. This is the Powhatan Hotspot Sprint, the first big target of the day after 24 miles. The whole field are taking it on together, and it looks like Vibram Venstra, who is out in front, just pipping Jamie Kelly there of Australia in second place.
These sprints along the way, Venstra doesn't usually come out to play until the very end of the race, where he's picked up most of his points to take that spotted jersey, but here he's taken one on the road. Now, last night after the Richmond stage, the fans came back a few hours later to watch the National Straight Line Sprint Championships. So the stands were once again full, and this is the entire course up there at the top. There's the start banner, and you're looking from the finish line. It's a downhill run of about 300 yards, and Richmond's finest are on hand to see if there's any speeding violations to be given out. Based on those numbers, we'd have to say that by the time they get to the finish line, there will indeed. The bronze medalist from the Barcelona Olympic Games, Aaron Hartwell, is on hand, as well as young Bill Clay of the Pan American team a couple of years ago, and Marty Notstein, who is the driver of the tandem when two sprinters get on the same bike. Nelson Vales joins them for the final, and this is it. 3 riders across, 300 yards, and downhill run. Speeds have been hitting close to 50 miles an hour in this event. Nelson Vales in the Stars and Stripes jersey goes to the early lead. That is not his style. He is used to coming from the back, but it looks like Big Nelson from Indianapolis, Indiana, the former bicycle messenger, is about to deliver a win. Here he comes down the straightaway. Nelson Vales, it's going to be close. Notstein almost gets him, but no, it's the Cheetah. Nelson, 9 years after winning an Olympic silver medal, you had to put some pretty fast young legs in the pavement to win here today.
Well, I was really afraid of Bill. I pretty much know Marty's style. I was really afraid of Bill, so that's why I said I'm going to go right to the front and try to control it, almost like a cure and finish, 500 meters out and just full gas. And it actually worked. I was surprised myself.
Come on, you can't teach an old dog new tricks from the front.
Nope. You can ride it from the front, you can ride it from the back. That's a professional life. You got to be able to do it. Thank you very much. Oh, boy.
Paul Sherwin there from Motorola, presenting a telephone indeed to Nelson Vales, the winner today. Tremendous ride from a great character and a great sprinter too. Well, let's get back to the road and the Tour DuPont. The first attack of the day being delivered by Roman Saprikin, the junior world pursuit and individual team champion from last year, and his 25 miles covered so far.
Just after the sprint won by Venstra, Saprikin took off. Now Yelenitem goes back to the car to consult with Jan Ross and figure out just what to do about this young Russian. Where does he sit on the general classification? Well, there's your answer. He trails Raul Alcalá by 4 minutes and 13 seconds. So if he gets that much time up on the road, that's when the danger signals will go up, and Word Perfect will have to start chasing again.
For the moment, the big breeders of this race have shown no signs of countering the attack. They don't see the young Russian teenager as a real threat to the race leaders of this event. 4 minutes 13 seconds is a lot of time lost so far, but what a great talent that these Russian riders are here. Because Bayakov, only 18 years of age, still rides high on the overall classification, but he's trapped nicely in the main field at the moment, and his 8th place overall will be conserved today, I'm sure of that. The field, Brian, just aren't interested in the young Russian at all.
Well, this leisurely pace is going to allow Saprikin a chance to get away and make up some big time out on the road. All he has to do is ride like a racer, because these guys look like they're on a touring ride, sitting up, talking, chatting, finding their friends that speak the same language, whatever. Meanwhile, the Saprikin, you can see the body language on him, and in just a few miles, he has gone up to a 6-minute-plus lead, and it didn't take him very long to get there. Less than 5 miles down the road, he's already the race leader on the road. He could take the yellow jersey, figuratively speaking.
And one rider has launched an attack from the group. It's Manuel Fernandez from the class team. So he's trying to catch up with the leader. If the two get together, there could be trouble. We'll be back.
Coming up at 7 Eastern, Ryan's Express derailed again. Cubs look to make it a clean sweep of the struggling Dodgers, and Grandmama's status upgraded for tonight's playoff game against the Knicks. Ahead on Sports Center at 7 Eastern.
The picture of Eddy Merckx, the great Belgian cyclist, now retired. I wonder what he would have done in the Tour DuPont in his day. Well, he'd be pretty pleased with the performance by Roman Saprikin today. The junior world champion is out in front. The last time check we saw, he was over 6 minutes, and that meant, Brian, he was the race leader on the road now.
He trails on the result sheet by 4:13, and here he's practically coming to a stop. Oh, look, he's taking 2 feed bags. He wants 2 musettes, so he must be figuring on really packing on some calories out there on the road. Plus, he practically came to a stop. 6-minute, 45-second time check, and behind him by less than a minute comes the other rider, Fernandez, who is chasing him. It's interesting that these two guys have been riding for almost 30 miles, both away from the field, but neither has waited for the other one or picked up the pace. Team Word Perfect, they are chasing, but you can see it's a fairly leisurely chase. It's interesting that Saprikin took 2 feed bags and could practically stop, because his lead has gone up now to almost 15 minutes.
And this is the junction. The Spanish rider, I don't understand Russian too well, but I'm wondering, in fact, if the coach told him in the feed zone that Fernandez was catching him, and that's perhaps why he went so slowly, because 2 riders are better than 1. They're attempting to hold off the field now. 65 miles covered. There's still a long way to go. There's the lead, 15 minutes and 15 seconds.
Well, he did obviously finally get the word. Maybe he just didn't know that Fernandez was coming up, because he should have waited for him. Fernandez was just inching up to him for the longest time, and normally a rider will get word from the team car that someone is definitely clear of the field. He'll sit up just long enough for the guy to catch him, and then they'll work, and it took a long time for that word to get to Roman Saprikin.
But I think the word too has got to the main field here, Brian, because it's now in a long, thin line. The peloton, as the French call it, is in angry mood now. There's Raul Alcalá resting where he can, deep down. And back up at the front here, the 2 riders again receiving instructions and drinks on the move.
Alexander Kuznetsov, who has put together a lot of very fine bike riders, and his list of world champions, including Roman Saprikin, is as long as your arm. He has handed up some more water, and these two continue to work while the Word Perfect riders day in and day out, are the ones that have to get the job done of defending the yellow jersey. They seem to have relaxed a little bit, and it appears as though Kulstroff of Belgium has gone to the front to give him a little bit of assistance along with the Germans.
And this is the sprint at Appomattox, where there's a time bonus of 3 seconds for the winner. That's not going to help Manuel Fernandez too much with his overall position, nor indeed Roman Saprikin. But they're the first two leaders through at Appomattox, 85 miles covered. And the riders certainly taking on plenty of fluid today, because these last 2 days in Virginia have not only been hot, it's been very humid as well. And on a race like this, you can expect to take in as much as 8 litres of fluid in the 6 or 7 hours in the saddle. And look at this, because Fernandez not happy with the speed and the shaking of the head from Saprikin. He sprinted clear of him.
I think what he's saying is, I can't believe this guy. I wait for him and then he attacks me. And sure enough, Fernandez has gone off on his own, thinking that the field is catching the two of them, and maybe if they catch Saprikin, they won't realize that he's gone and he can pick up the stage win himself. Quite an opportunity, and applauded by Roman Saprikin. He's going, way to go, guy, but it just didn't quite work. These two have got to kiss and make up, because there's no way that one rider's going to stay away from the field, and at least two have twice the chance.
Well, Manuel Fernandez, 22 years of age, his first year as a professional rider, and he gives 3 years to Roman Saprikin. The field are slowly grinding down the lead, but the question is, will they pull it back in time? The lead is still in double figures, and when we come back, we'll see if they catch up. We're back with the Tour DuPont, and they're still trying to bring back the two fugitives of the day, Roman Saprikin of Russia, Manuel Fernandez of the class team from Spain. And whoops, and a wrong turn there by one of them. And in fact, Fernandez didn't read the marshal's instruction there. He should have made the right. And Saprikin is prepared to wait for him, because the lead is coming down dramatically. They're going to try and make the best of it now and try to reach Lynchburg ahead of the field. When we get to the finishing line, Brian, we still have that big 8-mile lap of the town.
Momentary lapse of concentration there for Fernandez cost him some seconds. I'm not sure if it was crucial seconds, because the peloton is definitely chasing these guys down. I think their days are numbered, their miles are numbered, and for both of them, especially Saprikin, it may be actually a relief to get caught. And he's yelling at him here, going, "What? You don't need to know English to understand an arrow and a guy pointing to turn right."
Well, there's Raul Alcala. He's had a very smooth day today. He's even stolen a 1-second third place in the sprint at Appomattox. So he'll be feeling very pleased with his day's performance. The attacks are starting now. The field can sense that the two riders back out in front are coming back towards them.
Frankie Andreu there of Team Motorola, along with Roy Nickman, I believe it is. These two have been on duty for quite a bit of the race. And again, the chases are not coming in the form of a long, steady line as Per Pedersen now takes off. This is really representative of the kind of attacks that have been going on. Just one rider, individuals going after it, not that big, long freight train. Well, the Word Perfect guys were doing it earlier, but now it's just sort of a one-on-one free-for-all.
Well, Per Pedersen, a Danish rider who rides on a Spanish team. There he is, trying to keep some action going on the road here to bring back the leaders. He was in the thick of the action yesterday as well. It didn't work out for him then. And these are the two leaders. 1 minute 52 seconds is the time gap now. We're in downtown Lynchburg.
An 8-mile circuit that is not as flat as the rest of the course has been. In fact, it's a little bit tricky. Here's Roy Nickman chugging along at the front there. So earlier, that wasn't him, because he's got 2 of those tri-spoke wheels on. As they come around the corner, they'll be heading towards the finish line. They'll pass under the banner with 8 miles to go. Saprikin and Fernandez at least will have the honor of coming into town first, if not finishing first on this stage, because I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, the field are looking at each other now as the attacks start, because the sprinters can sense if they can reach the quarry, they might jump away. That looked like Chris Walker, who shot through from the field. Chris, a former winner of the British version of the Tour DuPont, which is the Milk Race, a 12-day race back in England, and a very strong sprinter as well, as he tries now to get across the gap. But they started the reaction, and this has set a touch paper here. The whole field are now going for the leaders.
Look like the Kulstroff team. Verstappen possibly, definitely Steve Hegg. Here's Alcala. He has found himself caught at the front and has to chase on his own here to keep the jersey going away. Right behind him, Subaru Montgomery stalking him.
And these are the two rides. Well, they've got no more speed left in the legs. They've been in the lead now for 88 miles. And it might be proving just a little bit too far, because there is the field. They can see them now if they turn over and have a look. And they're going to catch him in the next mile or so, Brian. We're going to be treated to a great finish here.
It's still a free-for-all, as again we see no two jerseys alike anywhere near the front of the field, or at least not obviously so. Chevrolet LA Sheriff team chasing this down, and finally Saprikan has to give up, and I think Fernandez has already resigned as well to being caught by the charge of the field. Here it comes down one side of the road. IME Health Share look like they're the ones really animating things here again. Could be Walker, could be Mark McCormick. They're starting to go for the real attacks to see if they can slide away here on this final circuit.
Well, the American-based professional teams are having a great Tour DuPont this year. IME have yet to win a stage. They almost did it yesterday, and they're spearheading the attacks today as the riders now come through the finishing line for the first time. And Jeff Pierce is leading them through for the LA Chevrolet team. Now they've got a full 8 miles to go, and the field is coming together. In fact, that wasn't Jeff Pierce, rather. It was Steve Hegg, Brian.
Right behind him was Stennerson and Motorola. Bo-Andre Nambet again. These are not the star riders. These are guys trying to snatch a stage win.
So the field is still together as they come towards the end of the Tour DuPont. We're going to be treated to a great sprint today. We'll take a break. Main field all back together again as they're now on the finishing circuit. A strong attack there goes by one of the Spanish riders. They're trying again to win a stage, but the whole field has come down on them. This has been a tremendous last few miles around this closing circuit here in Lynchburg. But the field now are watching and waiting as all of the teams, Brian, are trying to move their sprinters to the front.
Attacks have been happening constantly, and rather than moving the sprinters to the front, the teams are all shattered all over the field because they keep having to chase breakaways down. We saw one rider from one team and then a different one go up the front, and look at this. There's no two riders alike on the front of this bunch. Here's Ron Kiefel, though, coming down the stretch towards the line.
Well, he's caught them all by surprise. He's hit them at the right moment because they were so tired from the constant counter-attacking that they've been doing over these last few miles. Kiefel has hit them hard. It's a short rise to the finish. Whether, in fact, he can hang on to this is touch and go, because there's the rise. He's looked over, he's checked them out. Well, this is a terrific return to top 4 for Ron Kiefel, the former champion of the US, gets to the line. He wins just ahead of Veenstra. Elliott will be third, and Davis Finney, his partner, was up there too. There's the result. Kiefel from Veenstra from Elliott. So Kiefel beat the sprinters at their own game. That's tremendous. Let's go to Brian and Ron.
I knew I had to sit back and just watch it. And it was a hard circuit, a lot up and down, and groups could get away and then they'd come back. And Colot's guy, I'm not sure, Spanish guy, attacked and the Belgian went with, and I just on the back and they set up just a little and I went. And I knew I had to get the monkey off the back of the Coors Light cycling team. So now we got a stage victory. We're relaxed, we're ready for the next few days.
And the overall has changed only slightly. Raul Alclu got a second in the sprints today, now 23 seconds ahead of Lance Armstrong and a minute 2 ahead of Bart Bowen of the USA. So the Mexican goes to the mountains again in the leader's yellow jersey. He's happy and very relieved because shortly after the finish today, the rains came, but it finished in the sun. Keep staying with us on ESPN. Tomorrow we go to the Homestead in Virginia, and stay with us throughout to our final programs because this race now really is hotting up. Our wrap-up show will be on May 17.